Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Local Film Talk. I'm your host Bob Walters, and today we are talking with Andrew Martin and Naaman Wood. There are two guests who are here to talk to us about the next screening of Cinema Symposium, a local screening group where we get a chance to see some really great films with a group and discuss them. Andrew, can you tell us a little bit about your background? How did you get into film, and how did you get the idea to start Cinema Symposium?
Right. So yeah, I've been obviously a film fan my whole life, but I guess around college is when I decided, oh, I should make movies. That would be fun. And I've spent the past 16 years trying to figure out how to do that, how to make a living doing that. But I still learning every day, and part of what makes film exciting for me is the community building aspect of it. And so we looked around and talked about the fact that it would be great to have more sort of places to go see films and then get people together and talk about them. That's kind of always the dream, is all a bunch of friends are going to go watch a movie and then we'll go grab beers after and talk about what we liked and didn't like. And so we wanted to figure out a way to organize that together. And when I say we, it's my partner Eric Newby, who cannot be here with us tonight. He's traveling. But about 2 years ago, we met at church and we're just talking about like stuff we would want to do. And we're like, oh, it'd be cool to start a film night, And it took us about 2 years to even get it off the ground. And now we're on our sixth film so far. So.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of them. I went to two in December. Let's go over them real quick. The first one I went to was The Shop Around the Corner. Was that the second or the third one?
That was, I believe, the third one. So the first film we showed was Children of Men. That was our kickoff film.
Sorry.
The second film, yeah, Children of Men was a great movie to start with, and it got a lot of people talking. Our second one was maybe not the best choice, but we got a few people out there. We showed Terrence Malick's The New World as sort of a Thanksgiving-themed movie, and didn't go over as well as we had hoped. It's not really his best film, so we'll have to show another Malick movie at some point. And then the third film was for Christmas. We showed Shop Around the Corner, but we wanted to have a big Christmas blowout, so we showed Shop Around the Corner and Die Hard,
right.
So that you can do it both. And
that was actually the first time I finally got my wife to watch Die Hard by dragging her out there. So she made it quite a while before she saw it, but she finally saw it at Cinema Symposium.
I know everybody sees it on TV every year, but it's something about getting people together to rewatch it, like experiencing it like you did in the theater is kind of an interesting concept. And it's still a great movie, and that's what we're really trying to do, is show great movies. We're trying to show great movies. Last month we showed Truffaut's Day for Night, which is a movie about filmmaking, and so that was a big hit. I think a lot of people really enjoyed that one. And then this month our film is Network, all about television. So right. we're trying to hit a lot of different genres and a lot of different topics with the films we pick.
I was going to say, you've hit not only genres but time periods. Shop Around the Corner is from the 30s, I think.
Yes, well, I think 1940, so it's probably made in 39. But yeah, so it's kind of from that screwball era and that sort of early romantic comedy era of the talkies.
Okay, and how did you get involved, Naaman?
Well, I met these guys at church as well, and we kind of discovered that we all kind of three liked movies, and then they asked me to host one night, and I was thrilled to do it. So.
Okay, so is this your first one?
This is the first one I've hosted, yeah. I've been to the previous one, the Day for Night one, which is a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, cool. So, like I said, I've been to a couple of these, but just for people who haven't been, who are hopefully interested in checking this out, let's talk a little bit about the format. There have been some previous screenings where there's been a short film shown ahead of time. Will there be one this time?
Possibly. We're not sure. This is the first time we've had the symposium aspect of it is always something we've been trying to cultivate, and Naaman has given us an opportunity to dive into that, where we can have an expert kind of come in and talk about these films with a little more depth and have put some time into the research behind them. So if I can find the right short film, I think, Bob, you've certainly helped me try to find films. We're trying to sort of pair a local North Carolina film with one of these features and trying to find a way to sort of have the themes or subject matter kind of go together, and that's a challenge naturally, and we might break away from that mold if it comes down to it. So I'd love to find like a 2 to 3 minute short that could just kind of kick the night off and kind of give people like a laugh and a startle or something to kind of get them into what they're about to watch. But I also want to make sure Naaman has enough time to watch. But to your previous question about the format and the night, I mean, we're very fortunate to have this bar in Raleigh called Common that's letting us show these films there, and they have a projection sound system in place and really fantastic cocktails and just a really cool place to hang out and watch a movie. And so yeah, we get together, and it usually starts around 7:30, and we talk for a little bit ahead of time. We network. There's a lot of filmmaking people, a lot of artists there, so there's a lot of networking going on. And then we sit down, we introduce the film briefly, and then we watch it. And then after we kind of hang out and talk. But if, the beauty of what Eric and I sort of set out to do was, if you're not going to hang out for another hour and talk about the movie because you've got to work or you've got kids or things like that, then we're building this online site as a way to sort of create this community that people can then go to and have these chats and post things and say, hey, I was thinking about the movie 2 days later, and this just popped into my head. What does everybody think about this? And so that's the future vision for the site, is to create a place that everybody can go and sort of share in these experiences.
Right. You glitched out for a second there, but so far all the screens have been at the Common. All the screenings have been at the Common 414.
Yes. Yes.
In downtown Raleigh on Fayetteville St. And so far, we've been fortunate enough that they're all free.
Yes, they are free, and so
tell us a little bit about what's involved in like screening an actual like copyrighted film, and what goes into that, what the costs are, and how you're able to, at least for now, offer the screenings for free.
Precisely. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, I mean, when Eric and I decided to do this, we were like, oh, we're just going to show movies. And then the first question was like, would you have the rights to show those movies? And I was like, well, what do you mean? We're just going to show them, right? That's what people do. And it was like, no, if you show them
Super Bowl or something.
Yeah, if you show them publicly, then you have to buy an exhibition license, a temporary exhibition license for these films. And there's companies that deal with all this stuff. So the average film to rent for one night to show publicly, in various venues is between $125 and like $300 to show it, which is not outrageous. It's a pretty good price, I think, if you're doing it right. But that right now, that sort of burden is falling on Eric and I to cover those costs each time, and so over the course of a year, that's going to add up pretty quickly. We were able to create a nonprofit status for the organization, so now we have the ability for people to donate to the nonprofit, get a tax deduction for that donation of any value, and ultimately we're wanting to build sort of more of a subscriber or membership-based model where your membership gives you access to a lot more things, and it helps support the films, and it allows you to be part of this community. So this year is kind of our pilot project to get it up and running and sort of see what kind of support we get, and then we're going to structure it a little more maybe as a subscription-based model after that.
Right.
But when you come out to the film, it's free. I mean, even if you're not a member, we'd like to still be able to offer the films to people that want to come out and just come see it.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, the 414 has been kind enough to let you use the venue for free, which is really nice.
Precisely. So that keeps our cost.
Everybody go and buy a beer up at the bar.
That's right. Yeah, you support the bar, and everybody wins. Yes.
Right. So let's. Well, that's really cool. And again, the next screening, I believe the next one is not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after that. Usually it's on Sundays.
We've experimented with Monday nights, Sunday nights, and Tuesday night is our next screening. We're trying to see what draws the biggest crowd and what works for the bar. So Tuesday, March 24th at 7 p.m. is our next screening.
Okay. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit about, first we're going to start out with Naaman, who will be discussing the film, which, like you said, is Network. So let's go ahead and get into the film and talk about that film and what we can expect, and what are some of your thoughts on the film, Naaman?
So I first saw the film when I was in graduate school and was just kind of really struck by how just funny and smart the film is. I later kind of went on to grad school and studied media and rhetoric and communication, all that kind of stuff. And in coming back to the film, different things hit me about the film this time. The first thing that struck me was just how well Paddy Chayefsky knows the logics of television. So he's able to...
He's the writer of the film.
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah. So Paddy Chayefsky started off writing in television. Well, both Sidney Lumet, the director, and Paddy Chayefsky, the writer, both started out in television in the 1950s during the Golden Age. And so they know this world very well. And so I think what Chayefsky's able to do is to kind of step inside kind of the way television thinks, the way television people think, and then kind of project out what it would look like. So looking back on the film, it's very prophetic in a way. He anticipates something like reality television. So that's one of the key things in the film. I think that really stuck out to me this time. When I first saw it, the film, it was the early 90s, and reality television hadn't really landed as largely as it had now, and so that really stuck out to me. The other thing that stuck out to me this time was the kind of generational concern, right? So the older characters in the film, the William Holden character, he's in his 50s. He's kind of he's my grandparents' age, right? And the younger characters, Faye Dunaway, with whom he has an affair, they're kind of my parents' age. And so it seems to me a conversation like it's my grandparents and my parents talking to each other about how freaked out my grandparents are about my parents' television viewing habits. And so that structure really stuck out to me too, because I guess I see lots of that these days about the millennials and all this concern about their media consumption. So yeah, those are the two things that stuck out, and those are the things that I'll talk about in a little more detail. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the movie it's from 1974 or 1976, I think.
I think it's 76. That's right.
And it's set in what was at the time the present day, right?
That's right.
Or it's not like a dystopian future or anything. It is what was present day at the time, and like you said, it. One of the things that's interesting about it is that it's actually, like you said, it projects all these other things, and what at the time was like extreme, like far-off satire, like really things taken really to the edge, or at least the perceivable edge of how crazy they could get and how bad the media could get about sensationalizing stories and everything. But one of the things that I've noticed and that I've read a lot of people comment on is that compared to where the media actually is today, like you were saying with reality television, some of the stuff actually seems kind of retro and quaint. Like a lot of the things that they brought up have actually come to pass, which in some ways is a little scary. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm sort of obsessed with that sort of era in history in general, and the 70s were such a powerful time in American cinema where kind of the keys to the kingdom had been opened to let these more artistic writers and directors tell their stories, and so Network to me was almost like a high water mark in a lot of ways of that era because, Jaws had come out the year before and Star Wars is going to come out the year after, and that kind of was when that whole world changed. And so, yeah, 1976 is really like beautifully captured in this time capsule of this film, and it's not dystopian, it's not abstract, it's like it feels almost like docudrama. Like Lumet also made Dog Day Afternoon right around that time, and you look at the way that film is, and he had a way of just sort of capturing real life on screen, even though it's all completely rehearsed, it's all completely fabricated. He was so good as a director of making that stuff seem real. And if you read his book, Making Movies, which is a required reading for any film student, I think, or any film lover, he just talks about the ways that he can do that. And Network, to me, when I watch it, I'm just blown away by it. How big the cast of characters are, just sort of moving in and out of these spaces, and how real the environments are, and just the language and the lighting and just everything just feels very like matter of fact about this. And it's the most absurd stuff that's happening, but it's done so like normally. That's kind of what makes this movie so brilliant, I think.
Now, how does this fit into Sidney Lumet's filmography, and especially some of the stuff right around this time? Like you mentioned, Dog Day Afternoon. He, like a lot of directors, has a lot of themes and stuff that he generally likes to explore. and particularly in a time period, a person can be obsessed with some particular topic. So how does this fit into his larger body of work? Either of you, what's your opinion?
Yeah, Naaman, you want to take a shot at that one?
Sure.
Or I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, I'll kind of answer the question by kind of just making one observation about Network that I think is part of what kind of makes it unique. So, as opposed to kind of the other films from the 70s that Drew was talking about, Network's not flashy at all. It's very restrained. I mean, there's very little camera movement. I mean, it's all kind of basically kind of classical kind of American storytelling on cinema in its very kind of restrained form. And that takes just an incredible amount of discipline, I think. And so that's one of the things that I think is remarkable about the film and Lumet in this period is just the utter restraint and control kind of in his filmmaking, which I guess might be a little different from Dog Day Afternoon in that it's Dog Day Afternoon seems so big and overblown in a way. I don't know, Drew, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Lumet is a hard director to pin down. I mean, it took me a long time to even appreciate how great he was because he is so restrained and because he does sort of change his style up for every film. You can't say, oh, that's the Sidney Lumet style because each of his films is pretty different. His first film, I mean, he made a lot of live television, which I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of live television, and he learned how to do that. And then he made 12 Angry Men, the original 12 Angry Men, which is like the perfect, sort of story that takes place in one room, and he just knew exactly how to light that and how to frame that. And his films go all over the place. I mean, one of his best films to me is The Verdict with Paul Newman, which is just a gut-wrenching movie, but also very restrained. And he just, I don't know, he just had a natural, I think there's certain directors that I admire that had a way with actors, and I think Lumet knew how to work with actors and knew how to get the best out of actors. And so all of his characters just feel very rich and very real. I think Network might be his best film, only because I don't know what I would put above that. I mean, it might be one of, the best films ever made just because it is so original, I mean, you look at films that came after that try to emulate it, and even they don't really touch what it is, George Clooney, I think, tried to do a couple different Networks with Good Night and Good Luck and with Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which are both good movies, but they don't touch Network. Boogie Nights, and Magnolia, I think, are both sort of Network ripoffs in a way. Like, everybody sort of looks at it and goes, I want to make that kind of movie, but very few people know how to do that.
Right. Well, and you say is or maybe one of his best movies, and like we mentioned, Dog Day Afternoon and 12 Angry Men, that's pretty good company to be in. Yeah.
So many great films. I mean, Serpico was his. I mean, he made the Wiz, didn't he direct The Wiz?
Yes, he did.
I mean, so there's a guy that you can't say what he's gonna do, you don't know what his films are gonna be, and he just sort of took stuff that spoke to him. He liked to base his movies in New York. That was kind of one of his unifying themes, was that he liked to tell New York stories.
I was talking to someone recently about how directors, and I think this might be one of the things that you, Naaman, were talking about earlier, how it's more traditional. Like you guys were saying, Lumet started out in the 50s directing television, so this was, say 20, 25 years into his career, and he had a lot more experience in the traditional way of doing things, whereas the other movies, the new Hollywood guys you were talking about, like Spielberg with Jaws and George Lucas with Star Wars, they were bringing in a lot more modern techniques, dolly shots, the push, pull, zoom, and all that stuff, whereas Network seems a lot more grounded in traditional style that Lumet had probably been honing over all those years. But I forget the other point I was going to make. What were we talking about?
Well, I mean, I think it's a wealth of material with him, but he was different than everybody else. I mean, he didn't win a lot of Oscars either, I don't think. I mean, he wasn't really singled out as a flashy guy, and so I think that he kind of got lost in the shuffle when people talked about Scorsese and Spielberg and Coppola and De Palma and whoever else you want to name from that era. They all sort of had this very camera-centric kind of way of telling stories, which I love, but Network sort of took an opposite approach of let's suck you into the story by not using all that stuff, by using the writing. You know, I mean, the Paddy Chayefsky script is probably what we mostly need to be talking about, because here's a guy that, you know, fought really hard to get this movie made and worked in television his whole life and was like, this isn't a satire, this isn't something I'm saying is made up. This is real. This is what I've experienced working in television my whole life.
Now, I was gonna say I'm not familiar with his work. Can you guys educate me and, you know, hopefully the viewing or listening audience a little more about his work? Because he seems like a name who is probably a lot more influential or is a lot more insightful than most people think, and history's kind of left him behind. So let's learn more about him.
Yeah. So go. You got anything on that, Naaman? You want to say?
I'll just kind of throw a couple things out. So, you know, Paddy Chayefsky worked in the golden age of television. He wrote kind of all kinds of things that have kind of come to be respected. The most important thing he did in his television career is probably a film, made-for-TV movie that was later made into a Hollywood film. It was called Marty. So Marty went on to win kind of the Academy Award and the Best Film at the Cannes Film Festival that year. And that's kind of the moment that where his career pivoted from television to filmmaking. And then also he wrote for the theater as well, so he has kind of several plays that he's written. Marty and Network, I think, are his most important work. So if you want to kind of get kind of a handle on the kind of key works, those are the two most important ones. Yeah, Drew.
Yeah. Marty in the film version was played by Ernest Borgnine. I don't remember who played him in the TV version. It was a different actor, though. But yeah, Marty was all about a guy that lived with his mom, and it was just kind of, you know, that sort of slice of life stories that live television and that the theater were bringing out in the 50s and 60s, these kind of characters that just had all these internal angst. And Chayefsky just had a great gift of language, a great gift of character, and, you know, a lot of people when talking about him were like, he had really strong opinions that he wanted to get across, but he knew how to sort of hide them within comedy. And I think that's a really great gift any writer should try to aspire to if you got something to say. It's like finding the joke within the truth, because you can reach more people that way. They don't feel like they're being preached to. And he was really good at that.
It's a lot more palatable for the audience.
Exactly. And so you walk away feeling something, you know, and you had a good experience, but those ideas started to seep into your subconscious a little bit. I think Chayefsky was a little bit off the rails towards the end of his life, because the last film I think he was attached to was Altered States, which was the William Hurt story about kind of going into these weird trances and, you know, eating a goat and things like that. But yeah, Altered States is a very different movie for his career. And then Hospital was another sort of big movie that skewered the healthcare and medical industry.
That was one of his. Okay.
Yeah, so that was George C. Scott was in that. So, but Chayefsky was just a name. You know, he was a name screenwriter, which, you know, you think about today, like there's not a lot of screenwriters that get credit, you know, for the work, and he was a screenwriter whose name kind of stood above the title. You know, I think literally in that work,
could put butts in seats.
Exactly, and Hollywood doesn't like to give the writer a lot of credit. The theater does, and that's sort of where I think that dichotomy came, and where Lumet was so important, was like saying, these are Paddy's words, these are what we want everybody to remember, you know. And he kind of, Lumet's approach is, I want to kind of get out of the way and let those words, you know, work.
Okay, cool. So who are some of the other, you know, some of the other big names that were involved? You know, you mentioned, was it Jane Fonda? Who was it?
Faye Dunaway is
that's what I was thinking. And wasn't there what's his name? The main guy. Is that that's Peter Falk?
Peter Finch.
Peter Finch. Right.
So Peter Finch
won posthumous Oscar for his role, if I'm correct.
Yes, he was up until Heath Ledger. He was the only actor to ever win an Oscar for a film he made that year, and it died in the same year. And so he's extraordinary in the film, and is definitely worth the price of admission just to see Peter Finch's interpretation of this character. He's a British actor playing an American. yeah, the film also has William Holden, Robert Duvall, one of Robert Duvall's best roles, I think, and that's saying a lot because he's done a lot of great ones. And then Faye Dunaway, I think this is one of her best roles as well.
Cool. I remember what I was going to say earlier about Sidney Lumet. You were talking about how he was always jumping around and trying different stuff. And I was going to say that I was having a conversation with someone recently about how a lot of times, seems more so nowadays, directors get pigeonholed into a specific genre or a specific style. Michael Bay is going to do your big action movies. You got your horror directors, they're going to do horror. When somebody says a new David Cronenberg movie is coming out, you kind of know what to expect from that. Whereas there were some older guys who directed in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, who if you go and you look at their credits, they did completely different stuff. I want to say it was Robert Wise, who directed West Side Story and I believe The Sound of Music. Also did the first Star Trek movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it used to be a lot more common for people to do, like you were saying with Sidney Lumet, who actually dabbled in a lot more genres. And it's interesting to see somebody try their hand at a lot of different stuff, always experimenting, never sitting on their laurels.
Yeah, I think before the days of the auteur director, there was just more journeyman directors who were just for hire, and it's like, oh, there's a movie and they're ready to shoot it, I'm available, let's do it, And I think a lot of those guys ended up taking gigs that way and then ended up making great films because they knew how to tell that story.
Right. Well, cool. This ought to be a lot of fun. So one more time, this is Network from 1976. And the screening is going to be Tuesday the 24th at 7 p.m. or is it 7:30?
7 p.m. Get there, hear Naaman's talk, and then 7:30 is when we'll start the show. Go to our website, cinemasymposium.com, to find out more about our organization and about what's coming up. You can get us on Twitter and Facebook at CinSimNC. Just come find us. I mean, the last thing I want to say about the organization. We want everybody's input. We started this as a way to build a community, but it's only going to build if people get involved. And tell us what you want it to be, and we'll work to make it that. It's a work in progress, and the more people get involved, the better it's going to be.
Well, cool. Sounds great. Do either of you have any parting thoughts? Anything you want to say about Cinema Symposium or the movie itself, or stuff you got planned for this particular event?
I think we're gonna have a big turnout. I think it's gonna be a good night for it. It's in between all the basketball games, so you don't have to worry about it conflicting with any of the other stuff going on in March. I think it's essential viewing right now. The more I think about it, the more I look at it. It's like this is still talking about stuff that's going on right now every day in the news. And so I think we need to see that and be able to talk about it. So I think it's important for people to engage with a movie from this era and see how relevant it is today.
Well, cool. Naaman, did you have any parting thoughts?
No, just that I'm excited for the film coming up, and look forward to seeing all your viewers arrive.
Well, I will definitely help spread the word. I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me. Again, Andrew Martin and Naaman Wood. Come out and see them at Cinema Symposium 6th on Tuesday, March 24th.
That's right.
At 7 p.m. there, and I hope all of you will too. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, Bob. This is great.
Thank you.
Good night.